Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is Lisa Huertas. I am the Chief Strategy Officer for FTSI, and I just want to welcome each of you. Thank you again for taking time out of your day to join us for this, what we hope to be a really informative, powerful webinar as we talk about innovation with Agile API-led integration architecture. And we're really excited. We do have a couple of just really quick housekeeping items to start with as we get ready to start. We do want to let you know that our webinar is being recorded, and a recording of this webinar along with the slides are going to be sent to you as soon as we've concluded the webinar. And we also want to let you know that we really want to encourage interaction. For the purpose of this recording, we've muted everyone's microphone. However, we would love for you to ask questions throughout the webinar or even at the end in our Q&A session. So please feel free. There's a question box where you can enter questions. We'll be monitoring those throughout the webinar, and we look forward to that interaction. Lastly, I want to point out that there is a handout in the handouts tab of your control box, and there is a case study there that you are free to look at now. That will also be included in the follow-up email as we progress after the webinar. We are honored today to have a couple of guest speakers. As I mentioned, my name is Lisa Huertas. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer here at FTSI. And we have two wonderful guests, Charles and Anand from ModusBox, who have a ton of experience in the integration space. I have been so honored and impressed as we have partnered with ModusBox and talked about some of the groundbreaking things that they're doing in this space. And I'm really excited for you guys to hear some of the exciting things that we're going to get to discuss today. So welcome, gentlemen. So we want to get started with a couple of really quick polls. So we just have two very brief polls that we would love for you to participate in. And so the first poll that we have for you is going to come up in 1 second. As we are depending on our technology, I know it's going to happen in 1 second. Yes, okay. So our question for you is, where are your integration hotspots today? And you can select more than one. So please feel free to select one or all of the above, whatever applies for you. And we're going to leave this poll open for about 10 seconds. If you could go ahead and click the boxes that apply. Okay, we're going to close the poll. And it looks like we may have, maybe not had as many pollsters as we're thinking we would, but I think what we're going to discover today is that there are a lot of hotspots in our environments, and we are looking to integrate our cores and to do powerful things with our digital banking, our CRMs, and our online applications. We do have one more poll we're going to try and see if this works. It's a really super easy one. It's a yes/no poll. So we're going to try this one. Our question is pretty simple. Does your IT landscape serve to support your desired pace of innovation? Or are you, for some reason, I think we had some issues with the poll. Molly, I'm seeing we can't click from some of our attendees. So let's try this one. Let me know, guys, if you can click on this. My crystal ball would say that we're going to get no's, but I'm hearing that the poll might not be working, so I apologize, guys.
Looks like it's working now, Lisa. I'm not sure what happened.
Okay, great. Let's try again. Oh, yay, it is working. People are clicking. Perfect. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the poll. So no, so that's actually, this is good. So we're close to 50-50, if our landscape is supporting our desired pace, but definitely a little more than half of you said, no, it's really not. And I think that that is typical of what we see in the industry. But for me, when we go back to our slide deck here, one of the challenges that I experienced the last 3+ years, I served as the technology chief experience officer at Texas Tech Credit Union. And one of the challenges that we saw when we were in this space is there were often moments where, we wanted to go faster. We wanted to integrate a particular product or service, and we were really challenged because either it didn't integrate well, it didn't play well with our core, which is XP2, or the time that it was going to take for us to get something done. I had the honor of working with our frontline staff, our call center, our video agents, and our lenders in our consumer lending, and there were processes that we wanted to make faster, or create some efficiencies, or just even a better member experience. And some of those were stalled because we had to wait for our core to respond, or we had to wait for a workaround or an integration to happen. Or our core would come back and say, yeah, we can do that. It's going to be $125,000. And so it was just like, okay, well, let's get some more duct tape. And so, it was very challenging at times. And we ended up, growing a whole business development team with developers and coders and analysts and things so that we could actually go at our pace. But that's another different kind of cost. So, I wonder, Charles and Anand, does that sound familiar? When people come to ModusBox and say, we're frustrated with our vendors or our core, is that something that you guys get a lot?
Well, absolutely. And by the way, the poll results are not at all surprising that we just saw. Oftentimes with our customers, if things are in maintenance mode, typically the legacy architecture and systems they have are doing just fine, and change is happening slowly. It's the moment innovation becomes a requirement that our customers are hungry for kind of an Amazon type of architecture where things are exposed as services and you can develop quickly. And that's where you start to hit that roadblock. And yes, it is typically because the systems all require this very painful and direct integration that takes too long, especially the banking core. But Anand, I know you've seen that more from the technical side than just the business process side.
Yes, I have seen this a lot. I mean, like Charles, you said, when things are in cruise control, there are no issues, but it's only when you're trying to onboard a new vendor and you're trying to connect the dots, oftentimes you realize that there's so much technical debt already and it's no time to clear that. Let's just build more technical debt. Let's just go ahead and build another point-to-point integration and reconnect the dots, because now we have to onboard this new vendor, and that is the highest priority, and we don't have time to clean up. So yeah, it just keeps piling on and on and on. I don't want to steal the thunder of the slides that we're going to be presenting here. So I think, Charles, let's just dive into the presentation, because that's exactly what the theme is of this of today's webinar.
Absolutely. One last point, maybe. You mentioned a very, very important phrase, which is technical debt. So not to be alarmist, but oftentimes when things are humming along nicely, it is often because there are development and architectural compromises. We keep sort of doing things the same way, but sooner or later, when that innovation imperative comes, suddenly that's where things tip the balance, and the need to do things faster becomes apparent, and the road becomes harder. But let's go.
Yeah, I think the best way to think of technical debt is lack of reusability. You don't see reuse, and I think that's if I have to describe technical debt with one word, I would say no reusability.
Perfect. All right. So, all of this is usually discussed in the context of what people call digital transformation. And let's see if I have, there we go. So I'm going to just pause for a moment. Digital transformation it's this weird thing where it's both a reality that a lot of financial institutions are going through. It's also kind of a marketing phrase and buzzword, and there are all kinds of different terms, but maybe we can just level set what we mean even by the digital part of that. So for a lot of our customers, their focus is on the digital applications they want to bring online. online banking, mobile, online account opening, and so forth. And think, hey, as long as I get that, I'm going to get the products and services to my customer base as fast as conveniently as they like. But there is another element that's also in parallel, developing the infrastructure. That's going to actually get you your business outcomes. That'll allow you to optimize things that you need to optimize immediately, and to have vendor independence. And by vendor independence, what we mean is two things. One is you're no longer dependent on a vendor like your core to deliver your solutions for you, but also that you have the choice to onboard any vendor you like. It's about building more flexible integrations, delivering faster, and with that, getting the ability to have more insights about your customer and actually serve them with the services that they need. So it's important to understand this is actually a business effort, but it also has to be backed with the integration technology that's going to deliver it. And Anand, you've used an analogy before, kind of about a train track and the relationship between business and IT in delivering digital transformation. You're on mute, my friend.
No, that's yeah, I always use that analogy. I often think about businesses as driven by the business leaders, of course, and IT happens to be a caboose all the way in, all the way in the back. It's kind of pushing along, dragging along, and trying to meet with the business needs. But what we mean by digital transformation is we got to put the IT as a second engine of that train and make sure the IT is aligned with the business in driving the business needs and keeping up with the speed of innovation. So that's really what I mean by this digital transformation or digital strategy or digital modernization, whatever your flavor of digital is.
Okay, fantastic. So Lisa, it looks like we had done some polling even before the session. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts or insights about some of the roadblocks that customers have responded to here.
Well, yeah, and I thank you everybody for answering this question upon registering for the webinar. I think that we're all this really aligns with what we're going to be talking about today, and this definitely resonates with me of some of the challenges we experienced as a credit union, looking at the cost to integrate. There are some of our vendors, we were an ITM shop trying to integrate, do an integration there, or doing with some of our online and mobile, or bringing all our data into one place. The cost of that was really staggering, and core limitations, don't even get me started. A simple thing like changing an address, you would think would be an easy process, but it was like, come on, do we have a better way? So we were constantly looking at better ways to do things. And then support resources, not everybody has, again, a team built out that can do some things in-house, but looking at then outsourcing support. Of course, we want to talk about timeline. It seems inherent of construction, whether it's physical or digital projects. Sometimes the timeline, the cost of that, the cost of focus. When we're talking about having to serve customers and members every single day, and then you've got all these technical projects, is definitely staggering. And then you get it all built and it's beautiful and wonderful, and then somebody makes a change and things are disrupted there. So yeah, I really feel like all of these things are big rocks that we're considering when we look at innovating and we look at progressing our experiences and our efficiencies. So I'd love to hear what you have to say about this.
Well, the elephant in the room of this slide, of course, is what Anand mentioned about the technical debt, especially around the cost and the core limitations, because oftentimes to get something done, a compromise is made or some kind of roadmap is postponed. And so that just sneaks in and adds to all of these bubbles. But yeah, we'll get into it in the presentation, but this kind of lines up nicely with things that we've seen with our customers quite a bit. There's a common theme here. Okay, so what we're showing here is just kind of the common use cases. And by use case, I mean just the high-level business processes that our bank and credit union customers are typically working with and want us to help automate, and that are kind of top of mind for them to get the results they want. So these are probably very familiar to the audience here. With loan and mortgage, these are the big three that you'll see with every sort of mortgage implementation. Change of address that Lisa just mentioned, Anand and I see this quite a bit with our customers. change of address is a simple function, and yet it seems to be broken or fragmented with so many of our customers. And it's an interesting implementation because it touches just about everything, the core and a number of different systems. And so integration has to work well to deliver that correctly. And of course, new account opening and definitely member or customer 360, getting that visibility of your customer and also making it more efficient to respond to that customer. These are some of the big ones customers come to us with. But there are others. This is kind of the entire menu of use cases in the financial services world. And again, when we look at this whole list and we're talking to our customers, what we're saying is don't worry. If you're modernizing, if you're starting to make all of your systems talk to each other in a more efficient way that allows for faster innovation, you don't have to do a big bang research project and a delivery that could take 2 or 3 years. You can do it use case by use case, depending on your priorities. And the idea is that as you modernize, as you add these digital services, you are also getting immediate business value. And if we plan it correctly, each project pays itself off as you go. So we talked about change of address. Maybe we'll just dive in a little bit deeper. This is a kind of high-level illustration of the change of address use case. But as you can see here, there's a lot of manual intervention. A customer is coming to the branch, or maybe they're accessing it via phone, and they're saying, hey, I need to change my address. Somebody at the branch has to actually do that for them, present them with the results, say, is this what you wanted? And then go and input it into the core and send it off to other personnel at the branch who are going to input it into their systems. So right off the bat, this is a bad customer experience. In today's world, they want to just do it online, get verification that it worked or that a change is needed, and then they're done. But it's inefficient, it's costly, and things break. You better hope that these people got their instructions right down here and that they've inputted to the correct systems, and you better hope these systems actually talk to each other in an accurate way. Many times this isn't the case, and this is why we're asked to work on this use case a lot. So this is one sort of flavor of the challenges our customers are having. But I'll show you another that's more under the hood. So what you're seeing here is kind of a typical IT landscape at a bank or a credit union. And if you're doing a use case, if you're implementing something like online banking, that's going to be a direct connection between your online banking solution and any of the systems it needs to talk to, like your banking core or your CRM. And then the moment you work with your mobile banking, the moment you implement that, is going to be the same thing. And that's true of any other feature that requires connectivity to any of these systems. You are slowly building up this unmanageable architecture where it's going to be very hard to maintain it, let alone innovate on it. So to add to this challenge, many of your vendors, they're saying, we've got the solution. We've got middleware or an integration platform that will take care of all of this for you. But guess what? What they're really offering you is a proprietary interface to their own systems and data. And that's not going to give you that holistic management plane. You're also going to have to pay for it probably. And when you have several of these vendors saying, I've got the solution, you're not only managing the vendors, you're now managing their platforms. And good luck mediating in times of troubleshooting and anything like that between all of these systems. So the compromise that a lot of our customers make is they throw in their lot with one vendor, typically the core, and say, okay, you manage this for me. I'm going to pin my innovation roadmap on you. Please help get me these features. And the pace of innovation tends to be year and a half, 2 years. You don't get all the features you want. And of course, you're stuck with whatever contract that vendor has you. So these are the challenges. I'll be curious to know later if these are familiar to you, but now we'll take a look at the solution. So what we propose instead of that point-to-point integration is to mediate everything through an integration platform. There are many different flavors of integration platforms. There are a few that we recommend. But the idea here is that you're breaking apart all of those individual connections. So instead, what you want is a vendor-agnostic architecture. You're not dependent on any of your outlying systems. You have a choice. You can make the core do what it does best, which is to be your ledger, and in fact, get more value out of it. And the idea is that you are developing digital independence. With the digital independence, you now get the ability to actually add or remove services for your customers at will. So Anand, I'm speaking at a high level of something you've lived in detail. Before we go into how this works under the hood, do you have any thoughts or comments on this approach?
Yes, what I would like to say is up until now, companies are always thinking about integration as an afterthought. This approach forces you to bring integration into the mix before you're entertaining any new vendor or connecting any new two systems together. The whole idea is both the systems should definitely communicate with each other, but they need not know about each other, of how the things are actually flowing through. The digital independence is actually the logic that is built in this integration framework that connects the dots and also keeps everything flexible.
All right, so let's get under the hood a little bit more and show how this works. This may look a little bit technical, but actually it's not. So if you bear with us. So what the integration platform is going to do is to basically house APIs that are going to take your business process or use case and render it into composable and reusable services. And here's how. The first set of APIs you're going to build, let's just imagine, for example, that we're doing that change of address use case that you saw earlier, but this time we're doing it with the API-led approach. Those first APIs are just going to abstract the data from your core, from your CRM or other systems that you need to connect with. They're not doing any transformations or business logic at this level. They're just exposing the data in a secure and governed manner. But guess what? Your developers, your innovation teams, they no longer have to struggle to get into the core and deal with those governance committees and firewall rules and finding the interface experts, which is always a painful process. Now they just need to hit a RESTful API, but that's still an enormous number of fields for them to work with. So the next thing we do is to build out what we call a process API. And this is where all the business logic, the process orchestration, the transformation happens. The process API leverages the relevant subset of data you've already exposed here to build out your change of address engine, so to speak. All the logic is here. The only thing you have left to consider is presentation to your target experience or device. So then you build what we call an experience API. And all this does is handle the formatting and presentation. It's a remarkably easy API to work with. Usually these take about a week and a half to build. And this just takes everything from that change of address process API and renders it for the online banking. So this is still going to take you a while because it's your first project. There's discovery and design and the whole software development cycle that goes into this. But you're starting to get things that will deliver immediate value, not just for this project, but for many others. And we'll show you how. So in the first case, let's just say you want to add email notifications to the change of address business process. You may one time have to build that system API to expose your email server, but then once you've done that, you can wire that into your change of address process, which you've already built, and then you've got email notifications. Do you remember earlier how the mobile approach was going to take you just as long? Now it's going to take you maybe 2 weeks to build a mobile experience API and leverage all the plumbing you've built for change of address and render it to your mobile device. What you've also done is to establish some of the plumbing for other use cases so they can be developed and delivered much quicker. Let's just say you now have an online account opening use case. You will build that online account opening process API, but you're no longer having to build all these system APIs. You've done it in that first project. And then, of course, developing the experience APIs for web and mobile is very, very quick. Same thing if you're doing, say, a funds transfer use case. You build your process API, quickly build your experience APIs, and you're going. The pace of development, the speed at which you're going to get products and services out the door is going to increase dramatically. This is one of two really important points about this architectural approach is the reuse and the value and speed you get out of reuse. There is, by the way, also much more resilience in this because it's much easier to manage APIs in an API platform from a maintenance point of view. But the other thing is, what if you want to add or remove systems? With the point-to-point approach, that's a remarkably painful thing. But if you wanted to add, say, a new core and replace your old core, you could wire that new core into your system API. Do a phased migration at your own pace, do your A/B testing. And once all of your users are on the new core, the old core is sitting dormant, you can simply remove it. The important point here is you're not having to break apart all of these tightly coupled connections from that spaghetti architecture. Now you're able to do it very easily with the APIs. So I'll pause here because this is typically a very loaded concept.
Yeah, and so I mean, this is a lot, and it's amazing. It sounds, I mean, just absorbing this concept of that there's a better way to do this. I think that probably, some of the challenges that we're facing here is, okay, where do I start? Do you guys help with that? Do you help us organize You know, so you use the word reuse a number of times, and you built the system so that after you build the first one, there are paths that you can reuse for efficiencies and faster future integrations. Can you speak a little bit about that? How do you guys help financial institutions find those priorities so that they can start, you know, any of these processes?
Yeah, I can answer that question, but I'm going to use one of Anand's favorite words or phrases when I do that. So absolutely. The good news is, as big as this looks, you can start small and move fast, and it can be a remarkably low impact to the financial institution to get started. So where we typically start, you know, there is a process for this that's as logical as any other. But where we start is with a discovery session to understand the financial institution's current state, its roadmap, where the pain points are, and then what the use case priorities are and what we can attack first. But Anand, you're pretty much the whiteboard master at these discovery sessions. You have the insights to share about how easy or difficult it is for financial institutions to start, you know, with this approach?
Oh, it's actually very straightforward. I know this is a very loaded slide, everyone, but the way you should think about these APIs, think of them as Lego blocks. What we are trying to do is, as we are building your first use case, we're building the Lego block, the system API for the new core. We're also building a process API. Of course, that process is for that change of address or whatever the process may be. And then there is an experience API. In essence, we build 3 Lego blocks for you. Now, when you start building the next one, I can reuse one of this block again because I already know how to talk to the core, so I need not redo that piece. I just need to build a new process and a new experience, right? And this process keeps continuing. It may seem complex, but actually it gets simpler and simpler and simpler as you go along the way because you're just reusing those Lego blocks. Each of these APIs, it's important to note that each of these APIs are self-sustaining units, and they are highly secure because you're baking all the complexity and the security in each of these APIs. So it's also making your process simpler. When you're starting to develop the next use case and the next use case, you have already inherited the security, the monitoring, the logging, and all the other basic capabilities that you're looking for in any application from the existing Lego block. So that's how it goes. So
Yeah, that's a great illustration. I love that Lego block illustration. And I have a feeling you might show us how that might have happened with some other clients.
Yeah, actually, let's see how this is played out with a couple of our customers, you know, because it's better to let the customers do the talking. You know. In fact, when Anand and I are working with customers, we like to share the learnings of our most successful customers as a way of kind of getting started. So Stockman Bank, they're a customer of ours. We did a webinar with them earlier with the Western Bankers Association. So I'm taking some of the information that Kevin Glitzner, their CIO, shared on that webinar. But the first project on online banking integration with their core, they leveraged the API-led approach. You know, we were working with the Stockman team on that. It came in fairly quickly. We'd done this exact same integration before. But then the next project, which was online account opening, guess what? 75% of the APIs, mostly around the core abstraction from that first online banking project, were reused for this project. And to imagine that, instead of doing it all over again, getting into that core again, that's a 75% efficiency, a 75% time and cost savings. You know, there are probably more, but this is what I recall from the webinar. So the early results, you know, from just these 2 projects, we've covered, of course, the 75% API reuse, the faster speed at which the second project could be delivered. But the other thing is actually what Stockman found was they were able to deliver on their new customer needs quicker. They were able to actually start thinking about new operational capabilities because APIs are not just used for customer facing and transactional use cases. You can also tackle things like risk management and like you know, governance and compliance. And same thing, you build those APIs, you do it once, and those processes can be leveraged across different business units. It was critically important to Stockman to be able to deliver a uniform customer experience for all these different channels that their customers were coming into, and the APIs really help with that a lot. So one of the key points that we try to emphasize also, getting back, Lisa, to your earlier question about how do you get started, the first project, the best I think we're going to be able to show is how quickly we can deliver it, but it's that one project. Of course, it's going to start to show the ROI based on whatever its projected business value was. The second project is the AHA project. That's the project where you get the reuse and suddenly the innovation lights go on. What else can we do? What else can we do? So I guess, to summarize from Stockman's experience, digital transformation in that context, it was online capabilities for sure, but also Stockman very self-consciously built in the infrastructure to develop speed and flexibility. They wanted to get both as they went. And that's really kind of the goal and the mantra with this.
That's amazing. I'm impressed with this. And just getting our mindset to think about, instead of starting from scratch every single time, to get our mindset changed into and I have a dog. To get our mindset changed, this is awesome.
The dog agrees that this is the right approach.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, but no, it's what's been gratifying for Anand and myself, is to actually see the changes happen in the customer's mindset as they get to experience it. And then there's little they need from us after maybe the second or third use case. At that point, they're taking off on their own and they're saying, maybe for targeted things, we'll need you. But the adaptability is fairly quick. In fact, we can show that in our second example, which is Celerity Credit Union. There is a case study available. Actually, I think it's on the handout section here, but we did this case study with Celerity. I'm going to quote some data from that. So when we worked with Celerity on the very first integration project, that was an integration between their marketing system of record, their mortgage system, and their banking core. And we were sort of new working with each other. It took some time. There's some socialization of the model, but the integration was successful and it delivered quite a few reasonable assets, especially with the core. To their credit also, Celerity said, we want to pause, we want to kind of study this and understand what's the best way to leverage this going forward. And so they chose a strategic project next, which was their Salesforce integration. And this would normally be a very challenging project from an integration perspective, especially because the timelines were tight. I think because of the vendor's requirements, this had to be completed in 6 weeks. Well, we were able to reuse many of the assets we'd already built in the first project, especially around the core. We had to create a few new ones, especially for the Salesforce side of things, but this was not difficult at all. The project came in under a schedule, it came in on budget, and then this unlocked the capabilities that Celerity was after to have a kind of true customer 360 strategy in place. So the reports that I got from Celerity's Chief Digital Officer was, guess what? Our projects are coming in faster. We're basically picking and choosing where we want to innovate. Maintenance is not an issue for us anymore. What the case study describes and what Celerity has talked to me about is the incremental savings over time. So I'm going to tell you something that'll sound unbelievable, but this is data from our customer and not just from Celerity. But the project delivery cycles were reduced from up to 18 months to pretty much a few days. When you don't have to integrate directly with the core, suddenly you can get things done much faster. Writing to an API that you built is so much faster than having to dig in and get into these systems. So as we pointed out earlier in this example, Celerity was then on the path to innovate. Maintenance is still required, but it's much easier for the reasons that Anand stated earlier. And the teams are now focused on what can I experiment with, what's the next thing I can do. Another benefit, by the way, of the API-led approach is that you can fail fast. With those APIs, you can say, I think maybe our customers want this particular feature. Try a POC out, write it to the API, see what's happening. No, I don't like that. It'll just be a few days or a few weeks, and you can try another and another because you don't need 18 months in the core.
I'm going to stop you right there because I'm just telling you, when I heard this for the first time, I was literally like, there's no way. This almost sounds too good to be true, Charles. But you're telling me it's not too good to be true, that it's legitimately happening.
Yeah, and I want to just assure the audience that this is not an infomercial. This is just kind of the reality of bank and credit union modernization and enterprise modernization with the technologies and the architectures and approaches that are available. Mm-hmm. And your peers and competitors are already doing this. So if it seems too good to be true, people in that space are already leveraging what's too good to be true to compete. And so that's the case. But no, it's, I guess I would say the architecture and the approach, the Lego blocks that Anand described is fairly easy. it's the mindset shift and the change management and kind of getting the organization to go along. That may be a bit more challenging, but that's also a very, very solvable problem. And of course, again, we help with that because we understand you can't just plunk yourselves in and say, here's a better way to do it, let's go. It does require, that kind of socialization. So the other thing, of course, is Celerity was able, one of their strategic goals was to leverage the best of breed vendors. If someone is building a killer app out there and it's better than what my team can build, I want them to just hit my APIs and do it. Suddenly I can get world-class products and services out to my customers because I can leverage the people who build the best ones. And then the last part, which I found very, very interesting, because I've been dealing with staffing and integration, project capacities for many, many years, is that Celerity reported to me, we're able to scale really well with really a couple of mid-level developers and some strong, program management on our side. Yes, we'll call you in occasionally if there's kind of an architecture review we want or a thorny problem that we might want to engage you in, but we don't need you. We're doing fine with our relatively small team because the APIs and the architecture enable that. So really what Celerity demonstrated was there's incrementally greater ROI. You do have to follow the best practices. You have to really stick with it and not take the sort of dirty little shortcuts like, hey, I'm just going to build a bloated API that's not really an API and does everything. You do want to make these things modular, but that's not a difficult discipline to follow, especially when you get the results. So at that point, I know I've spoken a lot. I'll pause here for any questions I may have, and I'll hand the slides back over to you, Lisa.
Awesome. Well, we've obviously gotten a little bit of a taste here of what it is. We have a couple of questions from our audience here. The first question is asked, are there limitations for integrations on a vendor-to-vendor case, or in general, can it be pretty universal?
Okay, I'll start with that and let Anand, get into more technical detail. So you'll often hear, well, I won't say often, but I've heard quite a bit of people saying, hey, I've got a universal solution that you just plug in and all your systems are just magically exposed and humming along. It doesn't quite work that way. What it is you have to take each system, you have to take each IT landscape and stuff case by case. Some will be easier than others, some will be more challenging. But what we found is there are very few that are just impossible. If you just look at the banking core, for example, there are all kinds of flavors of core vendors and cores. Even if you just look at, say, Fiserv, Fiserv has the whole range. They've got some cores that are a bit more challenging to connect with and that you have to go through certain processes and so forth. And then they've got DNA, which is fairly open. So you are going to have to do some work to identify where the challenges are and meet them. And that is where some of the legwork comes in. But I don't think there's anything that we've encountered that's an absolute blocker that you'll never be able to integrate with. But Anand, keep me honest because you're much more into the guts of things than I am.
No, I want to answer that question directly, not from a technical angle, but it's really from a business angle. There are no limitations when it comes to technology. We can definitely integrate all the systems. The limitations or the challenge that exists today is more around the fact that the vendors and the core providers are more reluctant to play in this environment because they've always enjoyed having control over the situation, and now they're being asked to be transparent and open up the gates and let people integrate with their systems. And the challenge is there. We need to work with them to kind of have all the administrative things taken care of before we can start integrating with their system. So yes, your first project, as Charles mentioned in the earlier slide, it does take probably the same amount of time that it takes you to do any other project. But as soon as you execute the first one, the second one becomes easy because we have the pattern, the reusability pattern in place now to work out the paperwork and the logistics with your vendors, and also the fact that we have a couple of Lego blocks already ready to reuse.
Awesome. We have a couple more questions, gentlemen, that have already come in. What language or tech stack do you use to build these API layers?
I'll take that. I mean, language is of course Java, and all the APIs that we showed, they're all REST-based APIs. So we try to keep it simple. The messages that are being transferred across each of the layers, we try to keep them more in a JSON format or XML format. So that's we have to standardize that way because that's what makes it easy and that's what makes it plug and play.
Awesome. We have another question. Where are the APIs hosted and how are they secured?
The APIs are basically hosted in the integration platform, and so everything that you saw in that box where we showed you the experience API, the process API, the system API, these are all hosted in the integration platform itself. It's completely managed also within the platform. And security, that could probably require another whole conversation. But from a security angle, we have encryption there. We can build in dual two-step verification. We can integrate with your existing security product that you have, like SSO, whether it's Azure or OAuth. We can integrate with that. So yes, security can be baked into every one of those APIs.
Awesome. We have another question around resources. So do you have to have a team of people that are skilled in this area, or are you able to, talk about in-house resources is the question.
Great question.
That's Charles's favorite question. Charles, why don't you take that one?
We get asked this a lot. The reason I like this question is because for many, many years, I've dealt with just about every kind of staffing configuration you can have at a financial institution. So the range of scenarios we get are everything from, hey, we've got no team. We've got some working managers and executives. We outsourced everything. How will we do this? And then in situations like that, on that side of the spectrum, we can do a lot of that for you and proxy in as your team for a while. And then should you be scaling the model, should you want to start to build a team, we can help you identify the capable resources, interview them, train them, onboard them, offboard ourselves. So that's one extreme. On the very opposite extreme, we've got customers that say, I've got a very capable and mature team. Let's do the first project together as a reference implementation, get us trained up, leave us with artifacts and templates, be available for kind of a two in a box thing where you'll coach us through co-delivery on that one, but that's it. And then it's usually somewhere in between. But typically what we find is that there are at least some resources on the customer side who want to own the entire initiative and who want to learn this because it is definitely a great skill and a great paradigm to have. And so typically we're training them as well. We're very, very mindful of the fact that there's already a business in place and there's already a huge IT backlog in these places. And so we have enormous flexibility in how we will work with your people or help you come up with new people if you don't have the team in order to make sure that you can hit your goals without putting a load on your team.
Okay, awesome. Another question that came in, you kind of answered this, but this is a little bit more specific. Are there any cores that are not supported in this environment?
Well, I'm tempted to say there will be no core left behind. We have not yet encountered a core that we just cannot support. Now, what does happen occasionally is the customer will say, you know what, the core is already charging me so much money just to get access to my own data. So the good news is there are different flavors of integration platforms, and so we can make recommendations on which ones you can use if cost is a concern because the core is already making it very difficult financially. Modus Box actually developed its own integration platform and solution to address that. That's fairly low cost. But from a technology perspective, so far we have not encountered any cores that are just impossible to connect with. If you have such a core, you will probably want to migrate off it as soon as you can.
Okay, awesome. Another question that's come in, can you explain a little bit more about what happens when a core or a key vendor updates their code? How does that work within this ecosystem so that everything isn't disrupted?
I'll take that one. So when updates happen on the core side, and this is the beauty of this whole architecture, the impact, it only impacts the system APIs. So all we need to do is, while the update is happening, of course, we will plan this. This is not going to happen suddenly. We will work with the core as they are doing the updates. We will basically update our system APIs against the new version of the core, test it, and then deploy. All of these things will happen kind of in the background without impacting any of your existing integrations, because the integrations have no clue that the system API suddenly got changed, right?
Okay, awesome.
Sorry, that's from a technology perspective. From an operations perspective too, this is just one of the things we'll want to build in to the playbooks and for the operations training for the customer's team, so they have people who are actually doing the administration of this, is tracking this and working with us or working with the team to get the updates to the system APIs.
Awesome. I have another question around the core. Are there any issues relative to in-house versus on-prem or vendor on-prem cores or vendor hosted cores?
Absolutely no issues. We can work with on-prem cores or cloud hosted cores. That's not a concern.
So it doesn't matter in-house or, okay, that's awesome.
It doesn't matter. Our system APIs are going to talk to in-house cores or cloud cores. The only extra step is, I mean, the security changes, right? If it's a cloud hosted core, we may probably have a VPN or VPCs configured to talk to the cloud core. With in-house core, we may have to work with your security department to make sure that we have the right access that we need, which means involving the network team and doing the necessary firewall settings. So that's the only variable here if you're working a cloud host or in-house cores, but the solution works the same.
Okay. There's a question around, okay, so if it sounds awesome, is this $1 million? So the question is around cost, what kind of expense could you, this was specifically around hosting. Can you kind of maybe, I know that you guys do a custom conversation and all of that, but there's a question around what kind of expense or how do you break out your expenses of hosting the platform month to month or annually, or what is that like?
Yeah, that's a common question.
No, let's put it this way. I can give you a range here. You don't have to start out big. What we have seen in our experiences, most of the companies land up building about 75 to 80 APIs in the end. We're not obviously starting to build that many APIs with the first round. So in your first project, you can start with our professional package, which will keep your costs low. It's an annual subscription, so so your cost stays low with your initial round, and then it starts growing as you add more and more APIs. I would say your cost from a license and subscription perspective is somewhere between 50K to topping around 110K, but you would not exceed that number should you have, let's say, built about 75 to 80 APIs, which is going to be the max in any typical financial institutions. Because at that point, reusability comes in, and anything new that you build is really mixing and matching the Lego blocks.
Okay, awesome.
Could I just clarify one thing about that as well, too, because I understand that question. So the thing too is it's an incremental journey as well. So there'll be that starter license and services to get you going, but then the variation may depend on how much of this you pick up and keep going, and also how successful you are with it. The more successful you are, the more APIs you will build. Cost will go up, but the profits will be greatly in excess of those costs. So we work with you to figure out the ROI model for every single project. Let's figure out, is this project, what business value is it delivering? How can we measure it? Is it going to pay for itself? What are the gains you're going to get from it?
Yeah, that's an important point. We do want to start on projects that are going to give you the maximum ROI. So the initial projects definitely want to figure out what the ROI is, because it's hard to do an integration project for the sake of doing an integration project. You need to tie it to some initiative, like a CRM initiative or real-time payment initiative or something of that nature, because then we can tie it to the ROI and justify the cost, and then scale and grow along with it.
Okay. We have a couple more questions coming in. One around exactly how is the integration platform hosted? And also, can we talk a little bit about security? Do you have a SOC? Can you tell a little bit from a compliance and security perspective? Can you talk about your efforts there?
So our environment, I wish we could have probably invited an engineering team, but I'll take this question. Our environment is actually hosted in the Amazon cloud. It's an iPaaS offering. It's built on Amazon infrastructure. We manage it completely for you. It's an iPaaS. Yes, we are undergoing the process of SOC 2 right now. I think we should have that wrapped up soon. But yes, we can definitely check all the boxes for you from a security perspective, and we are going through a very painful, you can say, exercise, or a tedious exercise of getting the SOC 2 compliance completed soon.
And just a little bit more on the SOC 2. It's just one of those, necessary things, but just painful and time consuming, especially with the certifications. The dog does not like SOC 2, but no, we've this is something we're at the tail end of, that we track in our SOC 2 vendors platform. And what we've worked out with our customers and partners is we're very transparent about what we've done. If there are any gaps, saying this is great, but I just need to know what is your policy, what is your document, this, whatever, we simply provide those. And so even in advance of the certification coming, we provide all the information and all the artifacts that this customer needs to know we've done in order to feel safe to proceed with this.
Awesome. Well, you were talking about Amazon and they heard you, and so did my dog. So apologies for that. Different kind of Amazon, but delivery nonetheless. So I think, that wraps up most of our questions. I'll just hold it open for one more moment. If anybody else has a question here, I will, suggest here that this is a great opportunity to schedule a time to, we're opening up opportunities for any of you attending today that you'd like to sit down and have more of an intimate conversation about your environment, your initiatives, your growth goals, your integration environment today. We would love to sit down with you and talk about that. We have one last poll for you. And you'll want to stick around because we have an announcement after this. Oh, wait, we have one more question coming in. I'm going to answer this. I want to take the most of that. Do you have a cybersecurity team or a group that focuses on data security?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to do one last poll, as I mentioned. So we're going to go ahead and open that up. And I think we got the polls working last time, so we would check all that apply, but what are the most important business outcomes for your organization right now? Whether it be speed of innovation, banking core independence, simplified integrations, consumer visibility and insights, or legacy modernization. If you could select all that apply, that would be wonderful. It looks like we're distributing the poll. We'll hope that this works. I apologize that we've had some challenges. Okay, we'll wait 5 more seconds. We are collecting responses. So we'll go ahead in 5 seconds and we'll go ahead and close the poll. Okay, so simplified integrations is definitely top of mind, along with consumer visibility and insights. Banking core independence is right up there as well. I think this hit the bucket. It looks like we have a very patient group here today that understand the speed of innovation does take some time, so that's great. I think this is awesome, and we'll share the results of these as well with you. The last thing we want to talk about today is the opportunity. We've already had some comments come in just now that have asked for how do we get a meeting, what's next, and I'm just trying to advance this poll here. So for us, we would love to schedule a time where we can take a break and have coffee on us. If you will look in your chat box, there is a link there that you can click on, or we'll be sending that link out in an email along with the recording of this presentation, a link to that, the actual deck from today, and also that Celerity Credit Union case study, and then some information about how do you find out more. So we would love to schedule a meeting with you. We would, it could be 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever time, an hour that you have. We'll bring in some experts from ModusBox. We'll have a conversation, really offering any information that you'd like to know, and analyzing your priorities, doing the similar thing that we've done with other financial institutions as Charles and Anand have shared today. We've sat down and really took a consultative approach to understanding your goals and priorities. And so we'd love to do that. Patrick, I know that you said you'd like to set up a time, and we'll do that for you for sure. So I want to say again, coffee on us, take us up on that. We'll be sending you a gift card for a cup of coffee. If you don't drink tea, you can pick coffee, you can pick tea. But I want to thank everybody today so much for your time. I know that we all have crazy busy schedules, but I really thank you for making this topic a priority. And we'll absolutely give some contact information for you, whatever you need for the next steps for more information. I hope you all have the most amazing 5th of May, Cinco de Mayo. Celebrate that and have a great day with your teams and your members and customers. From FTSI and ModusBox, have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.